I'm going to cover a few different but similar topics that coincide with one another. Turn and radius, and the various techniques used to achieve large 2.5 scale models on tight curves. First, we'll start by uncovering and moving this 450-pound Jackson & Sharp coach. I had some leftover 1-inch scale rail and made work of it by utilizing it as a scratch line in order to move the behemoth. Moving this pig is no easy task. I'm always afraid of derailing, and at 450 pounds, she's hard to get back on the rails, especially as a one-man band here. Most people expect this out of a derailment, but in reality, it looks more like this. Anyways, back to moving the pig. Here she is, safe on the main line. Now back to train wheels, turning, etc. Here's a typical train wheel, if you will, with its conical shape and flanges. In this picture, you can see how train wheels are able to turn by using the conical shape in order to reduce contact with the rails. In other words, the conical wheel responds to the lateral movement along their angular face. It essentially gives the wheels some play. This all helps a train wheel, or a truck set, or a bogie set, turn. Okay, so another tip that helps my small narrow gauge railway is greasing the inner rails and or flanges of the cars. Now this technique is not recommended for all. Of course, it'll cause wheel slippage in the locomotive drivers. I'll take some slippage over a derailment any day, so I go with this technique. So I find myself, for safety reasons, greasing a few tight spots along my line. Like I said, it's not recommended for a few different reasons, but it works for me. I call this particular turn my death curve and or suicide turn. This is where the greasing comes in as an insurance policy when taking the neighborhood for a ride. But let's dive a little deeper into turning radius. The turning radius of a curve that a locomotive can handle easily is determined by the amount of lateral travel allowed in each axle plus the amount of extra gauge in the track at that turn. Lateral travel is the amount an axle can move sideways in each direction relative to the frame. In some cases, differential travel between the axles can be used. In other words, in the example above, if axles 1 and 4 can move left, let's say 1/8 inch, and axles 2 and 3 can move right 1/8 inch, you can say you have a 1/4 inch of usable lateral travel. To determine if you have enough lateral travel and or extra gauge, you can use this equation here. To be honest, I used a little more primitive approach to figuring out my death curves. To use the equation, one would assume my cranial capacity even allows me to remember what day it is half the time. With that being said, I roll the car over the death curve and check the bolster to truck distance pictured here. I'm definitely cutting it close here. Next, I check to see that the couplers aren't buckling. My couplers swivel and are not fixed with a spring cushion after I check the distance between the car's innermost point. Once again, I'm cutting it close here, but it works. Here's the car sped up, rolling along. And here's the cars in real time, rolling along the death curve. Now the big test, the locomotive under steam. She can pull 2 cars fully loaded, 4 adults, 2 kids comfortably around a 13-14 foot curve. I wouldn't push it any more than this. Let's talk about drivers. My locomotive has 4 drivers. You tend to get away with a lot more with 4 drivers as far as turning radius goes. My drivers are spaced out 11 inches apart. My Jackson & Sharp's wheels are spaced out 12 inches apart. Now what I'm about to tell you is my own formula. It's not proper, it's not prototype, it's not recommended, and it's for very slow trackage. I seem to have luck when using the 1-to-1 formula, but it's not proper, and you didn't hear this from me. So the 1-to-1 formula goes 1 inch of spacing between the wheels to 1 foot of track. Now when we're talking about radius, we're talking about a quarter circle right here. In order to make a half circle, you need 14 feet. Example, if you have 7 inches between your two wheels' axles, 7 inches, you should be able to take about a 7 foot to 8 foot turning radius. Should be. We all dance with the devil at times. Once again, you did not hear this from me. Let's get back to drivers. For those new to railroading, the drivers are the wheels that are powered. If you're messing with anything over 4 drivers, like an 060, don't cut corners and give her the space she needs. Of course, you can take out the flanges in the middle drivers. There's nothing cooler than seeing a 282 Mikado in full swing. But as you know, those middle drivers on, say, an 060 must never leave the rails. They can move and play the lateral swing game while dancing on the rails as their non-flange selves are intended to do. But you must never leave the rails or your suspension will pull them down and you'll derail into a lava pit. I'll leave you with this clip of me back in the Jackson and Sharp on the most sketchy rail line in the world, into my garage. I hope you learned a little about turning radius here. Use the formula. That's your best bet. Don't use the one-to-one formula unless you're a nut like me and like to experiment with different things. And if so, have fun, and that's what railroading's about, is have fun and experiment. You'll be a little safer if you try it with a Lego train rather than one of these things. And for all the newcomers out there, keep it light, keep it fun. Safety first, especially when dealing with live steam. Ask questions and consult with others that deal with railroading on a daily basis. I'm going to leave you with a couple pictures here of some awesome coaches I found. As always, keep steaming.